على آله وأصحابه ومن والاه رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let's try again. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
MashaAllah, very nice. Alhamdulillah. Nice to hear you all. Nice to see, MashaAllah, a lot of people sticking around. We appreciate you spending your Friday night here with us at the masjid. We have a very special guest, Constable Ziyad Zabian. He is a well-known personality, a well-known person in the community. I'll introduce him officially, and then I'll ask him some questions, and then we'll kind of roll with the questions as such, inshallah. Constable Ziyad Zabian is the diversity officer in the Community Mobilization and Support Unit at the London Police Service. He's been at the London Police Service for over 20 years, and mashallah, he is a member of the community. You would see him coming for salah, and he is someone who represents us in a very good manner in the London Police Service. And that's what we're here to discuss with him, that what does representation for Muslims look like in these public spaces, particularly in the London Police Service. And representation is important because we want people who are from our community, who are from us, and we feel comfortable with them representing us. We don't want people who we don't connect with, who we don't think are part of the community, representing us to the higher powers or to the status quo. We want from our own community. So we want to ask him his journey, his challenges, and some other things that concern us as a community, inshallah. So I'll start with first asking Constable Ziyad to tell us a little bit about himself, where he grew up, and why and how he decided to join the police force. Please.
First off, thank you, salaam alaikum, and thank you. It's good to see everyone and be here. I'm like everyone here. When I was 12 years old, I was at the bottom of this mosque doing the weekend schools, the dean, and that's where I started. I'm from this community. I was born and raised here. Alhamdulillah, I have a family of 6, and we live in London. And that was my passion. That's why I wanted to work in this city, to work in this community. Starting off as a Muslim, it's not easy. Being from a different background, a different culture, I was the first Muslim police officer in London, and that was a challenge. I didn't have no one to help me out when I wanted to find this passion of policing. And on a side note, the first time I met a police officer was in high school, and it was a very positive interaction with that officer. And that's what gave me that drive and that passion to get into policing. Now, obviously back then, over 21 years ago, I've been very fortunate. I've worked in our criminal investigations, schools, high school resource officer, which was one of the best things I've ever done, and now diversity, which is another great profession to do and give back to this community. So that's where I started off from the city, and that's kind of how the origin started. And back in my day, it was Imam Munir al-Qasim was doing the lectures back in those days. Some of you may remember that. I'm aging myself. That's how I started from this community. I'm for this community. I am here as an advocate for you, so please, if I can be a resource or to help you, I will. And yeah.
I'll keep turning my mic on and off. You keep it on, please,
okay?
Because I don't want it echoing on the stream. So I'm going to ask you to tell us, share with us a memorable moment from your policing career, something that you can look back and say that this was really memorable. I'm glad that I was part of the police service as a Muslim in that moment.
One of the best things you can do, and inshallah, I hope you all seek the professions, the things that your dreams, is when you're helping someone, when someone is in a troubled stage in their life, and everyone here has faced trials and tribulations and obstacles in life, how you overcome that makes you a better person. So when you're dealing with someone who's in a really bad zone, going through some really bad life struggles, and sometimes some people are going through mental health or suicidal feelings. So there's no better feeling than helping someone save that life, pull them away from that negative vortex, if you will, of what they're in. And that's one of the biggest benefits of policing, is helping an individual, making that change in their life that gets them on that right path, or it gives them that moment to turn things around, because it's never too late. It doesn't matter if you're 12, 15, or if you're 80 years old. You can always turn things around. Saving a life is by far, in Islam, Saving one life is if you've saved all of mankind, and taking one life is as if you've taken all of mankind. Saving a life, whether it's a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, doctor, there's no better feeling than to know that you contributed to helping that person. I've been to a lot of calls where I see a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. Sometimes we get to those calls where someone's in dire need. You're giving them first aid and CPR. So please, folks, on a side note, teach your children how to give CPR, first aid, because they will probably use it on you to save your life. Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, they're going to be using it on you, right? If God forbid you have a heart attack or something, they will save you. And I've been involved many, many times of giving CPR, working with paramedics to help save someone's life. There's no better feeling for me to know that I helped change a person's life or save that person's life. So I encourage you all to, first aid, CPR, get in that, because that will be something very positive if you find yourself helping out to a fellow brother or sister. Unfortunately, policing isn't all good and nice and everything. We deal with a lot of calls every single day. This city, we are getting hundreds and hundreds of 911 emergency calls. So yes, you will be exposed to really bad, sad tragedies. I've seen a lot of people die as a result of accidents, overdoses, and if you don't know what an overdose is, that's usually where they take a specific type of drug, too much of it, overdose, and unfortunately they die. Probably the worst thing I've seen is a crash involving impaired drivers. An impaired driver in London, this is public information, so a gentleman in his 20s decided to drink and drive. He had his best friend with him. And they decided to get into a motor vehicle, a car, which obviously we know you never do. There was a family, a father and his two 12-year-old sons, coming from a hockey game, arena type of thing. And they're just driving, minding their business, and the drunk driver went through the stop sign without stopping, hit the vehicle for these two kids. The impact was so big, and it knocked the vehicles into the cornfield. And I remember getting the 911 call, responding. This was pitch night, like nighttime, pitch dark. And I remember driving in my police car with lights and sirens on, and I'm like, why is the sun out? That's how bright the fire was from the flames, the chemicals and everything that were burning. And unfortunately, the two 12-year-old boys, they died in the car. They burned alive. Alhamdulillah, I got there before I didn't have to hear that. There was a female officer I worked with. She got there, and she heard these cries and these screams of these boys. She can't talk about this. It's too hard on her. So, I got there, so there was two 12-year-olds that died, and the drunk driver's best friend all died as a result of this one crash. So, in policing, we will deal with many tragedies like this, but that's just one that I thought I'd share with you.
Thank you for sharing that. This is very sobering to hear, and it's such a devastating experience. I guess the amazing experience of saving a life, and also then the real opposite, the tragic experience of seeing a life lost. It's very, very tough. It's very heavy. Thank you for sharing that with us. What do you think, as a practicing Muslim, as a representative Muslim, what would you say is the importance of representation in the police services, specifically for Muslims? How important is it? Could you speak to that, please? It's
the most important thing to me, and it's on my head every single day I go to work and I put this uniform on, because I know that my coworkers, my fellow police officers, they know I'm a Muslim. They know I pray and I fast and I do all those things. I'm that representation, and it's so important. Sisters that wear the hijab, you are that representation of Islam. To the brothers that you identify as Muslims with what you're dressed. It's so important we represent the best of our faith, because it's through that positive representation that we show what the true Islam is. Forget the media, forget all the news, that's wrong. We know the stereotypes, they make us look bad. That's why it's extra important for us as Muslims to represent our faith, because we know how beautiful and amazing, and we know it is the best faith. We know that. So we have to show it through our actions. And every single day I keep that in my mind, because I know for all the 100 good things I do, if I do one bad thing or I lose my temper once, that's what I'm going to be remembered by. And that's what I don't want. So that's what we all have to try. It's a daily struggle. I know it's not easy. We all have our hardships and our challenges we go through in daily life. But try to keep that positive and say, I'm a Muslim, I'm proud, I'm going to represent my faith to the best of my ability and showcase through our actions what the beauty of Islam.
And I think thank you for I think you're speaking broadly about representing Islam as a Muslim and as a like your upright character speaks about the virtues of Islam.
Yes.
But I think it's also specifically like at instances or at the turn of tragedies like the Afzal family tragedy that we all were traumatized by. Like I, as part of the masjid, really appreciated your presence in the police. Knowing that you were there made it a lot easier for us as a mosque. And like that representation, I think, is so critical. And it's not talked about enough that having someone like you in your position in the police when the community is harmed and traumatized is that seeing that familiar face and knowing that this person's got our back.
Absolutely.
It's very, very critical. I think like there is a gap here. Like, for example, you are in London Police and you are in this position. Other police services don't have generally high-ranking Muslim officials or officers, excuse me. Like, could you like maybe elaborate a little bit on like how, like why that is the case? Like just your thoughts, because you've met a lot of these folks. You go and give talks on diversity in different departments. Like, what are your thoughts on why that is a gap still?
You know, I was in another city and I did a presentation to 14 police services about the June 6th attack. And that was a very emotional, but I took the emotional journey. I took those officers and those police services on that journey. And this is my community, our community, this is us. When that attack happened, our foundations were shaken. You know, we've never experienced such a horrific incident. And it was an act done out of hate. And I know at the end we're going to have to talk about hate incidents, so I'll leave it for that. But it's so important for me to be there for my community. As the diversity officer, I can now advocate for the Muslim community. I can advocate for all the communities of faith and all of our partners. And that's something that's very important to me, to be there for the community, to support them in their time of need and for all the positive events. Whether it's the Eid, the Ramadan, whatever the events are, we're there. I'm there to support it for all the good things as well.
One of the questions that I get quite often from Muslim youth is it permissible for me to join the police service? Can I be part of this or not? And the question, because I don't know what that entails exactly, right? So my answer to them is more generic that, look, I mean, if you are going to be asked to do something that's haram in any workplace, then that is something that's not befitting for a Muslim to do. So my question to you is, as a Muslim, or say not you specifically, maybe your experience is, you know, you've had 20 years in the force, right? But say like a Muslim coming into the force now, are they at risk of doing something that is incompatible with their faith when they come in as a police officer?
No, in over 20 years of policing, I've never been asked to do anything I wasn't comfortable with as a Muslim. The London Police Service and all police services, they do education, they do training to ensure they understand Islamic and Muslim values and they respect it. When I first got hired, my sergeant, the supervisor at the time, asked me, you know, would you like a spot to pray? What would you like to do? How can we accommodate you? How can we help you? Policing and Islam go hand in hand. Typically, things that are haram are against the law already. We already know this. So it's not a big challenge to adapt. If you are in a situation, for example, you're going to a 911 call, or you're dealing with, say it's a family or a relative or someone you know, you're allowed to excuse yourself. Another officer will go and deal with it. If I wasn't comfortable dealing with the June 6th attack, because it's my community, I could have had someone else go in my place, and that wouldn't have been a problem at all. Anytime, so I've been trying to hire a Muslim sister who wears a hijab. I want to have that representation. And some of the questions you face is, will she be safe? Will my son or my daughter be safe? There is no call that they do where if I'm going to a call and I feel there's a chance of danger, I'm not going by myself. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 more officers with me. And this is just the common policy and practices. Any type of call where there's a hint of possible danger or problems, there's more than one officer. So is it compatible with Islam? Absolutely, I believe it is. And as a police officer, you have control over what if you're dealing with an incident, you decide, that officer decides if they're going to lay charges or not. Just because you do a crime doesn't mean you have to get charged. There's lots of different methods to deal with it, whether it's warning, alternative measures, there's lots of other areas to deal with it. When I worked in the high schools, the last resort for me was to charge any student, absolutely bottom. I wanted to help them get their education. If they had a problem, let's talk, let's communicate, let's provide guidance. How can we solve this problem? Going to jail does not solve the problem, or arresting someone does not help. That's the very last. So, alhamdulillah, never had any issues with policing or being a police officer, my Islamic beliefs. My co-workers, they all know my Islam comes first, right? Then my job and everything, that comes first. And they respect that, and they give me the space to do that.
Thank you. That's awesome. I think that we need to hear that, and that's something that I can't stress enough. That we need more Muslim representation in the police service. As I said in that June 6th attack, when we had Constable Ziyad, we were comfortable. We knew that he's gonna make sure that this will our concerns will be heard, because we can say what we feel, and oftentimes, I tell this now the politicians all the time. I don't think you guys hear us. Or maybe you hear us, but I don't see that you care for us. And I've told this to the diversity officer at City Hall. I've told this to the MPPs. And the next time I meet an MP, I'll say the same thing to him as well. I don't feel as a community representative that you guys care enough. You're there to listen, but nothing happens after that, you see? But when you have a Muslim police officer, I don't have that fear. I know someone's listening and someone cares for us. And in those moments where there is so much trauma and tragedy, that's actually the only thing you want. Someone who listens to you and cares for you, so that that extra burden is not on your shoulders. So I really can't emphasize enough how important it is for us to have more representation, and specifically from our sisters who would represent Islam even more openly, even more, not say publicly, but more the appearance is even more obvious and visible. You see, and that is a critical part of us, curbing the scourge of Islamophobia and hate. Coming to hate now.
And I just want to add one quick thing there.
Sure.
It's when we're dealing with all these issues, we are like you. I'm sick and tired of all the words. We want to see positive action, and that's what I've been vocal about as a police officer. I understand the Imam's concerns. We have the same concerns. Things happen, nobody listens. No, there's no change. There's no government policies that positive change to stop this type of violence or hate. So I am advocating we don't want politicians to talk. Talk is cheap. We know this. We want action. We need these changes to protect our communities. So I've been advocating for that as a police officer, doing my part, and it's we all need to come together, whether it is to speak with our politicians and whatnot.
Thank you, Constable Ziyad. Now, speaking about hate crimes, this is a frustration that we have as a community, that someone says something like, go back to your country. Mm-hmm. Someone says something like a racist slur, and that's directed at the Muslims specifically. Someone pulls the hijab or yanks the hijab or tugs at the hijab of a sister. And then when that crime or that assault is reported, it's reported as a fight or some sort of assault, but not as a hate crime. Because we as the public see is motivated by hate. Mm-hmm. Right? But then when it's filed as just assault, we feel betrayed because we thought this would be a hate crime, and that goes one step towards solving the problem. And it almost feels like the acknowledgement of our pain isn't there from from those who are supposed to protect us. Yeah. What do you think? What can you comment on this?
I'm in a good position now as a diversity officer. I look at any incident involving hate. I'll review that case. And I'm reviewing it with a very fair and open lens, and if it looks like it's hate, we're going to label it as such. The challenge is with operating within the law. So a hate crime is that any criminal activity committed against a person or property because of the person's bias, because of what they look, their religion, their race, the color of their skin, all those details. That's a crime. Someone hurts you because whatever they want to call you, we can prosecute that. The challenge is there's a gray area. This is called a hate incident. What this is, just like the example he just gave, go back to your country, you this and this, and they say some mean words. The problem with that is it's not a crime in itself. We call that a hate incident. And maybe that will change in the future. Unfortunately, these bigots, these racist people know that if I just call this person a racist name, it's not a crime. So I tell all of our community members, any act of hate or race, report it. That way we can document it, we can track it, we can identify hopefully the person responsible, whether it's a license plate or a description. And it's very important to report these because these type of people, these bigots, if you were, these racists, if they're not checked, they may progress to assaulting people or worse steps. That's why we have to report it, deal with that individual, give them a stern warning. But that's the problem. It's a hate incident. It's not a crime, even though it hurts us as a community, as Muslims. Being called these names, it hurts. It has a tremendous effect. That's why I always tell all of our friends, all of our partners to report it. That way we can at least follow up on it. So just to answer the final of that question is, I know it's frustrating. Somebody calls you a name and you think, why aren't police arresting or charging them? It's because that does not fit the law yet. Are changes coming? Yes, I hope so. Are the politicians working to change that? Yes. But as it stands right now, hate incidences, there's no grounds to lay a criminal charge, unfortunately.
What about the situation of someone, pulling the hijab?
Pulling the hijab off can be considered a form of assault. And when somebody does an assault and hate with the hate text to it, what that means is they're charged with assault, and this was assault as a result of hate. They're biased towards that person, and that's in court. That's the Crown or the prosecutor will bring that to the courts to have a bigger sentence. So it is a hate crime. They're charged with an assault, and it's based on as a result of hate, and then that's dealt with in courts.
As police officers, you could charge them with assault,
yes,
not for a hate crime. Is that correct?
So that will be brought up in the courts.
In the court, okay.
Now, for an actual hate crime, there's a process, unfortunately, getting permission from the Attorney General to lay an actual hate charge. It does happen. That is something I've expressed needs to be changed. We shouldn't need permission to charge someone for a hate crime. It shouldn't have to be reviewed. We can charge people with murder, manslaughter, crazy offenses, and we don't need permission. But that's one of those charges that needs permission. Parental abduction, for example, is another one. If a parent abducts a child, we need permission to lay that charge. So with hate, changes are coming, and we are laying any charges if their grounds are there.
And this is from the Attorney General at the provincial level?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a provincial thing. So this is a good, I feel enlightened by that, because we always feel like the police didn't report it as a hate crime because they don't consider the pain we've suffered. But in reality, for it to be a hate crime, it's a provincial thing, one level above, and the Attorney General has to say, yes, you can prosecute that as such.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And this is, I guess, something like this is an advocacy piece for us as a community.
Absolutely. And just be mindful, be aware that we record every incident, and it's flagged on the police system as a hate crime. It's flagged on our system showing that this person said this type of whatever they said, and it was based on hate. So we know it's a hate incident. And for tracking, City Hall knows as well.
Awesome. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. That's really good. I feel that this is very informative, and this is something that always kind of bugs us when we see this and hear that. So and I think the sentiment at the core of it is that there's a lack of care and empathy, but I don't think that's true. I think the problem is the bureaucracy of laying that charge. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I'd agree.
Let's open the floor to questions. Inshallah, we have Hassan with the mic. That's not his nickname. He's just Hassan, and he has a mic with him. Jazakallah khair, ya Hassan. If you like to ask a question, you can just raise your hand, and Hassan will come and give you the mic, and then you can ask your question, inshallah. Sheikh Khalid, please start us off.
Hi, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So yeah, my name is Khalid, and yeah, thank you so much for everything you do yourself and your fellow colleagues. We really do appreciate you in the community. Not so much when you ticket me in the traffic line, but that's fine. Okay, so I really had a question because you did mention that you deal with a lot of, or there may be some dealings with a lot of devastating incidents on daily basis. And I know sometimes when I have disagreement with my boss at work, it can ruin my whole evening at home. So, but comparing this to what you see, I believe what you see is more major, right? So, like, does the police service provide support, or basically my question is, how do you leave all this baggage out before you go back home at night?
That's a very, very good question. And so the first part is, at the police service, we call it mental wellness, mental health. We have a doctor, an actual psychologist that works for us that can help us through whatever issues we're facing. It's not easy for some people dealing with a lot of calls that we see. Dealing with a dead child or a dead baby, that takes a toll on someone. I've been very fortunate. My faith keeps me grounded, right? I know I can't save everyone. I know everything's for a purpose. I have that, alhamdulillah, that understanding about Islam, and that's key. That keeps me grounded. You need that moral compass to help you and guide you. But there's also lots of wellness, health and wellness support we have. Anything, any time an officer deals with a serious call, they have a debriefing. Everybody checks on each other, makes sure they're okay. If something's still bothering you, then there's counseling, there's support for them, for everything. And it's covered by it as well. Thank you. Good question.
Thank you for that question, Sheikh Khalid. I'm Muhammad. Sisters, by the way, if you have a question, you can just raise your hand too, and then we'll spot you. We'll bring the mic to you, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. After legalizing the weed and the cannabis in the last maybe 2 years, did you realize as a police officer that the crime rate increased, or nothing happened, nothing changed?
So what happened with that for crime rate? Our impaired driving is increased. So if you're not aware, everybody knows it's a criminal offense to drive while drunk, alcohol, right? But it's also the same level of offense to drive while high on weed. So that's been a significant impact. So normally we're used to alcohol impaired drivers. But now we've got another faction to deal with, people who are smoking weed, eating, whatever they're doing, and then driving thinking they're okay. And we're getting a lot of crashes as a result of that. So there's an increase in that for sure.
But stealing, fighting...
There's always going to be, anytime someone has, whether it's a drug or weed, in the school setting, sure. Because if you have weed, other students may want it, they may steal it, they may assault you, they may rob you of it. So there's certainly an increase of that, for sure, in the high school level. I've seen it in the high school.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Let's see if the sisters have a question. Sisters in the back. No questions from the sisters? Okay. Young man.
How long did it take you to get to the police force?
It's a very good question. It starts early. So to be a police officer, to get in the force, prepare early. It starts with your education. You got to get good marks in school. Don't get into any fights or troubles or problems. If you start from high school to when you get hired, it takes about a 6-month process once you're done either college or university. So about 6 months to prepare and get yourself from stage 1 to getting hired. Does that answer your question? Yes. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, which program or which school did I apply or enroll in to be a police officer? Here's the beautiful thing. Here's the secret. Whatever you decide to do, college, university, do what you want to do. You don't have to take law or policing because we're going to teach you all that. So if you're in college, have a backup career, have something because that's an asset. I'm going to teach you, our recruiting team, we're going to teach you how to be a police officer. We'll teach you, you're going to go to police college for 3 months and learn everything there is to be about policing. But if you bring a different skill set, if you say, I like accounting, but I want to be a police officer, take accounting at school or college, university, that's fine. It's an extra skill set to have. So I tell everyone, take what you want to do, and then when you're ready for policing, come see us, and we'll help you. And our London Police website has been really redesigned, and it lists everything step by step that you need to do, volunteer work, education, employment, all that stuff. Thank you. Correct. Fanshawe has a Police Foundations program. Technically, you only need high school education. The challenge is, if there's 100 applicants and 90 of them have college or university, they're going to get the first look, obviously, right? So that's why I always encourage college, university, anything, just finish, get whatever you want to get, the degree or whatever you want, and that's all you got to do. And please visit our website. It's in full detail every step of the way. Thank you.
Had you ever had to pull your gun out?
Yeah, I get this question all the time when I'm in the high schools. So I'm gonna just stand up so I can explain something here. So I have all of my equipment here. Okay, this is all of my use of force, as we call my tools. But if I was going to ask everyone here, and I said, what do you think is the most important tool I have on me? And this yellow thing, that's a taser, if you're wondering. The radio, that's my firearm, baton, spray, handcuffs. What do you think? Yes, he's got his hand up. Does he want to answer? What do you think is my most important thing? Okay, so I'll just give you the answer. My most important ability is my voice. All of this stuff, I don't want to use it. Your ability to communicate is the key to resolving 9 out of 10 problems or conflicts can be resolved with your voice, your ability to communicate. So that's my most important thing before I have to even resort to any of this. So alhamdulillah, I've never had to use my gun on anyone. I hope to keep it that way. Because if you can articulate and talk with a person and talk to them in a kind voice, that can bring things down. Hopefully you solve the issue.
When I do my bachelor's, do I have to do another exam to get into police?
So what happens is, if inshallah, when you finish your education, you get hired, and then you go to police college for 3 months, which is like school, which is like college, university, and you learn everything you need to do about policing. They teach you everything. They help you out, and then once you've done that, you start as a police officer. So you get hired by a police service after you've done your education. And then you go to police college for 3 months for the training to be a police officer, and then you start your job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks.
I have a quick question about, I guess, the lifestyle of a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've had conversations with some female friends, and they specifically, one of the main drawbacks that they cite for becoming a police officer is the clash that they might potentially have with their future plans. Maybe it's becoming a mother or just having like a work-life balance. So I'm curious if you could speak to your own personal experiences with your lifestyle and how that could potentially help or hinder, specifically like you have a sister or a daughter or something like that wants to get into the police force.
So talking with sisters and daughters, and policing in Canada is good. It's safe. Are we perfect? No, we're not perfect. We're always changing, trying to be better. But policing in Canada, generally, on the grand scale of things, it's done really well. I'm not talking about America. Thank God we're not Americans. I'm just talking about Canada. For female sisters or that are interested in policing, always know that with working in a city place like London, you're always going to have support and backup. You're never going by yourself to a call, right? And there's always support there. So I don't think it's really dangerous if the precautions are taken beforehand, right? If you're going to go into a situation, you make sure you have the supports and enough resources and police officers to deal with it properly for a good outcome. Would there be challenges in this day and age? We hired our first Muslim female officer about maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Alhamdulillah, that was a challenge in itself. But finally, we want representation from our community. Come make those changes. Be that positive influence on the police officers. You're going to give back and teach them so much. I welcome any brother or sister that wants to be a police officer. I will help you. I will guide you. I will mentor you along the way. So I hope that answers your question. There's a hand over there.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ziyad.
Thank you.
I'm a cab driver here for 18 years. And I tell you, like 80% of the cab driver here in London, they are Muslim.
Yep.
You know that. But we don't get any help from the police at all. Even we have co-worker, he died like 6-7 years ago in the Westmount, got killed. And we have a lot of story about that. And most of the drivers don't trust the police anymore. They are racist most of the time. They don't help, especially cab drivers. Can I ask why? What's the reason for that? Thank you.
I can't speak on any specific situation. However, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm in the position I'm in to advocate for that change. I was involved for the last year. I did a presentation for every police officer in our service on cultural competencies, working with people from other cultures, sensitivity training. For that reason, is every officer perfect? No, of course not. There's no, in any profession. The officers that struggle or have misunderstandings, that's where I will try and step into the best of my ability to help them, to educate them. I'm trying to undo a lot of what the negative stereotypes have done and said about Muslims, anything in general. So that's my mission to undo that, say, no, this is the factual information. You know, that Muslim, and I'll even say it, that Muslim cab driver will be the first one to help you if someone's in need or something. You know, I'm trying to showcase the goodness that we are. Unfortunately, the media, social media plays a very negative perception on Muslims in general. And I'm doing my effort to try and, break that trend. If you have any incidences in the future, I hope you don't, but if you do or anything, feel free to reach out to me.
Sisters, if there's any question, we asked once, but there weren't that many, or they weren't none actually. Sisters are not asking any questions, so we'll come back to the brothers. Anyone else? Another one, okay.
Jazakallah khairan, Brother Ziyad. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time. A little bit closer. In your experience working with in our high schools, particularly as it relates to Muslim students, what kinds of issues have you seen come up? What kind of issues are perhaps more prevalent with our youth? Yeah.
That's a very, very good question. I was fortunate to work in a lot of our high schools, and I'm going to be very honest and candid with you. Our Muslim youth are in a lot of troubles in the schools. They're exposed to, aside from the drugs, but they're having an identity crisis with their Islam. Because of privacy information, I can't go and tell their parents directly as a police officer because there's privacy issues there. However, our Muslim youth today are lost. Some of them are losing their focus on their Islam, and they're conflicted. I want to go to the party, I want to drink, I want to have fun, I want to meet girls, but I also want, wait, I'm a Muslim, I want to be a good Muslim. So they're facing all of those challenges in the high schools. Our Muslim sisters, so the Muslim brothers for sure, our Muslim sisters. What hurts me was when I was at a school and I'd see a Muslim sister get dropped off by her parents. And as soon as she walks into the school, what does she do? She takes her hijab off. So and I think, and I look at myself, I'm like, that's just, something's got to be corrected or fixed there. I don't have the answer for that, but if your child isn't ready to wear the hijab, I don't know what to say, because I'm seeing them take it off and get changed when they're in the school and their parents leave. So that's why I'm not a big supporter of forcing anyone to do anything. When something comes naturally and beautiful, they will cherish it, they will love it, and they will represent it properly. That's one of the biggest challenges I've seen in the schools. Because remember, the Muslim sisters, that hijab is an identity. It's an instant association with Islam. Whether it's a good or bad representation, it's just instant. That's what people are going to think. Same with the Muslim brothers, the Muslim youths. Yes, they're in fights and getting to drugs, and it disheartens me when I see young Muslim teenagers selling drugs to other Muslims or other people. I do my best to intervene. I don't go right away to charge them. I help them. Try to intervene with the families, and sometimes they are addicted. One of the challenges I was facing with some Muslim brothers that are addicted to vaping, something as simple as vape juice. They're having struggles just getting off that, let alone the marijuana, the cocaine, the pills, the crack, the crystal meth, all of those things. So to the parents, they are in a crisis in the school system. They are lost, and they need as much positive guidance and support as you can. And try to be that parent. Try to be the parent, but also be their friend. Talk with them. Get to know them. See what's troubling with them. They will show the signs, but if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss out to the troubling signs that will lead to worse things. We can hear him.
We'll come down here.
Quick question. I know that in the policing service, there are multiple different positions for a police officer to go through, and they can even diversify into other aspects. To get into those aspects, do you have to start out as a police officer at the bottom of the ladder and then build your way up, or does having prior experience, regardless of whether it's in policing or not, accelerate that process?
So everyone starts off as a police cadet or constable. The beautiful thing about policing is there's something for everyone in policing. There's criminal investigations, there's IT, there's computers, there's so many aspects, community services, diversity, recruiting, all of those things. So you will find something you love in policing. That I can guarantee. There's something everyone loves. But to get there, you have to work as a constable, like in uniform, like what I'm wearing, answering, dealing with the 911 calls of service, working on the street, as we call it, for 3-4 years, and then you can start to I want to pursue this, I want to get promoted, I want to go here, I want to learn about computers, or whatever your passionate dream is.
Assalamu alaikum. I used to listen before I came to Canada that here in Canada there is no, or not say there is no, but the rate of the racism is not very high toward Muslims. Having worked as a police officer for 20 years, do you face a lot of incidents towards Muslims as they are, for example, wearing hijab, or as they are Muslims, especially in high schools? Like, are there a lot of incidents? Is the rate of incidents high, or it's not?
Towards the Muslims, or
yes,
to who?
Towards the Muslim, yes.
There's always some incidences happening in the high schools. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be, because London, we're a very open city where there's lots of multiculturalism. There's lots of people from all cultures. You see sisters wearing the hijab every day on the street, no problem. So it's more accepted now, obviously, but that's where all of us come in play. And that's why I say, as a police officer or any profession, it's our job to break those stereotypes, show people the beauty of Islam, so they don't have those feelings. Because Islam is the most misunderstood religion right now, as we know this. And it's on us to show the beauty of Islam, what it truly is. Let's not let other people, social media or the news, teach people. Let's do it ourselves.
I think we'll take maybe one last question or a few. I think, are you okay on time?
I'm good for time,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, inshallah. Maybe a couple more questions, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan, brother, for your efforts. I would like to ask you, what kind of help would you like from the community? Just like you have responded to, especially with the youth in high schools, since you have seen a lot of need for the Muslim students, what would you encourage, whether it's the Imam or whether it's for the public, to help you as an individual? Or even, I've seen also some new Muslims who speak different languages come to the city. Sometimes they don't know how to respond to the police. How would you like community to help you as?
So I'm very fortunate. I'm in communication with the Imam Anwar and all the other Muslim leaders. Unity. Okay. When I talk with the Imam and he's expressing something, it's not him just saying. He's hearing the input from everybody. So everybody needs to support the Imam, whether it's the mosque, the Islamic Center, wherever it may be, because they're getting the feedback from all of us. I'm giving him feedback, and he's bringing this message to the people. So we need unity to support those messages, to support those directives of what to do. So I hope everybody, we should all be unified and support one another. Truly, well, that's the most important thing, is be there for each other and help each other, genuinely help each other.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. I'm just curious about one thing. When you get into a family situation, especially when it's a family matter and involves a Muslim family, so you know the tradition, you know the culture, how you deal with it, what you put first, what you put, how you deal with it, the situation to actually resolve it. Do you report it? That it's just how you deal with it. I'm just curious about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's an excellent question, sister. It's depending on the circumstance. Every circumstance is different. But if we're dealing with a domestic situation, so domestic, if you're not sure what that means, it's usually a dispute between a husband and a wife or partner or something of that nature. And please treat those very serious, just so you know. We will work within reason as much as we can with the matter to try and resolve it. We will get partners, whether it's the MRC, SSI, or the mosque, or community partners, support to help whatever the trouble is that's going on with the family. We will try and provide that, whether it's victim services, to help and support the families. And so, because we don't want to be back there. We don't want police. We want to resolve the situation so we don't have to come back. Right? So what can we do? What are the steps we can take to prevent this cycle, or if there's violence or there's trouble, how do we prevent that from happening? So we'll put all of those steps in there, and we'll talk with our community partners, and that includes all of our community partners, to solve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the questions. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you, Constable Ziyad, for making time for us and spending time with us on a Friday night. I know it's you have to get back to your family. We really appreciate this. Jazakumullah khairan wa barakallahu fikum. It's a pleasure for us. I told Constable Ziyad before that we meet in bad times quite often, but we should meet in good times.
Absolutely.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
It's a
My
real
pleasure.
honor for us to have you here. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you.
Next week, alhamdulillah, we have another special event. This is with all the Imams of London. All of us will come together, and you can grill the Imams, inshallah. I will happily cede the floor, and then you can ask them what's on your mind. It'll be a good event to come see everybody. It'll be nice. جزاكم الله خير. I'll see you guys next Friday. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد لا إله إلا أنت استغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.